If you had 30 minutes to hide from a nuclear blast, where would you go? This actually happened to me, sort of. My wife and I were in Hawaii, near Pearl Harbor, in 2018 when the ballistic missile alert showed up on my phone. "Seek immediate shelter, this is not a drill," it said. For a minute I thought it was fake, but why take the chance? I'd lived in Hawaii before and decided to get as far away from Pearl Harbor as I could before mass panic set in. I drove east towards Kaneohe. There's a tunnel through a mountain and I stopped in the middle. We were the second car to stop and within a few minutes the entire tunnel was full. After about 30 more minutes, a friend of mine in Kaneohe texted that it had been mistake. He'd had his wife lie down in the bathtub while he watched the TV for updates. It was a pretty frightening experience. What is a life-threatening situation you found yourself in? How did you manage to get yourself out? Dragged myself out of 24-hour drunkenness after around 7 years in the bottle. When I say 7 years in the bottle, I mean all the way in with the lid screwed tight. Edit more like 15 years in the bottle if you count the years of escalation it took to get there. 2 years sober, January 31st, 2021. I got myself out by calling my mother and all my immediate family and telling them flat out I was a raging alcoholic and I would be dead any day if I didn't go directly to rehab. This conversation was the first time my family ever heard this. I kept it hidden from about age 14, I refused to go home or anyone else's house. I said I will only leave the spot I'm in, my cousin's house, if I go directly to rehab. It took 2 days of refusing to leave on my part and my family finally got behind me and coordinated a rehab stay. I had been house sitting for my cousin and had gone on such a bender in the 2 weeks she had been gone. I had filled their recycling bin to the top with liquor bottles. I was driving to get more every single time I ran out. I couldn't remember one trip. I found notes from people I didn't remember meeting or hanging out with on the kitchen counter when I woke up, etc. I had a split second of clarity, and I knew if I didn't act on it right then and dig my heels in, I was never going to get out alive. I didn't spend 5 minutes regretting my decisions or feeling guilty about my actions through the years I spent piss drunk. I had absolutely no remorse or care in the world for anything other than myself until that day, and snap, clarity. I bet everything I've got, which isn't much lol, that I'd be dead if I hadn't done that day. Edit again. Wow, thank you for the gold. That's so nice of you to do. I really appreciate it. Why do you like to be alive? There's an old man I sometimes visit who can talk your ear off for hours on end. You'll sit down with him, and he'll start to unload his stories, one after the other, of his old friends, his years in the radio industry, and his misadventures chasing women. Once, halfway through his usual ramble, he stopped, turned to me, and said, "You know what? Life is fun. And it stinks to know that I'm getting close to the end, because the whole thing's just been so damned fun." That's always stuck with me. It's my belief that the person who's had the most successful life is the one who, when it's all said and done, has the best stories to tell his grandkids. What isn't socially acceptable but it should be? Being disabled. Hear me out. I have autism. Let's start there. That means virtually everything I do is autistic. Stimming with my hands or my voice, using sensory aids, needing to approach some tasks differently or avoid others entirely. Not making eye contact, needing more frequent breaks at work, learning differently. My brain just works different. You would not believe how socially unacceptable it is to just be autistic or disabled in public. People give me weird looks when I stim, or make fun of my sound sensitivity at work. I'm treated differently, and often poorly. I'm purposely isolated from groups I'm supposed to be a part of, and people tell me to act more normal, or call me crazy when I'm just being myself. And it's not just me. I've heard stories from other autistics, but physically disabled people deal with the same shit. Neurotypical, able-bodied people just treat us different, and they don't always realize it. Please pay attention. Let us be ourselves without criticism. What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? My uncle molested me constantly as a child. I told my mother, who got very angry. She said I was lying and was a terrible person for trying to split my family apart. My mother is a whole other can of worms. So he died when I was 16, and that made things easier for me, but no one knows. He's remembered fondly and often by his wife and kids at functions and dinners, and for 11 years now I just get quiet when he comes up. Telling people would only cause pain, and honestly wouldn't do me any good. No one knows but my boyfriend, and I carry the trauma with me everywhere. I probably should go to therapy, but between having 2 kids, working full-time, and being an adult student, I don't have time. Sex workers of Reddit, what is the worst request a client has given you? I can't consider this as a worst, but more so of completely unexpected, but here it goes. So back in the day whenever I couldn't afford my healthcare because insurance is pure shit in my country, I had to bend over backwards, literally, to pay for my treatment out of pocket. I have several diseases ranging from terminal heart disease, AFib, have a cardiac pacemaker, ankylosing spondylitis, autoimmune disease where your spine, ribs and sternum grows extra bones until my entire spine is inflexible and I'm rendered into a literal human statue and it is literally killing me. I'm lesbian through and through, but I had to make money as I had nowhere to turn as I was recently kicked out for being a lesbian, so no family to assistance, and told me I'd have been better had my mother chosen to abort me. Despite being lesbian, I would still service myself to males because queer women generally aren't really promiscuous to begin with. So finding a lesbian sex worker is pretty hard in a conservative city, especially being a black lesbian. Anyway, I think the guy felt so bad for me that he just asked to go to a drive-thru at Chick-fil-A and let me buy the 30-nugget cater tray, frosted lemonade, 6 cookies and a side of macaroni. Then we watched Community seasons 1 to 3 in one sitting. That was the first random act of kindness I'd ever experienced, and from the person I'd expected less from, a man, by being prejudiced. Instead of leaving me to my devices or just pass me up like some random hooker most wouldn't consider befriending, He not only fed me, he taught me how to invest in the stock market, taught me carpentry and auto mechanics, and then went a step further and was so generous he paid for an entire semester of my school so I could finish my education to finally achieve my dream of getting my BA in animal ethology with a focus on coyote conservation. I've introduced him to the wildlife sanctuary I volunteer at, and whenever I have the strength he will accompany me with senior staff by doing presentations at public functions on how essential and important coyotes are to our ecosystem. Long story short, he is now going to be my best man in my wedding to my beautiful lady, who has also helped me reach my true and best potential. I owe him my sanity, and I regularly make him brunch after he finishes long shifts in the hospital he works at. We've been best friends for 8 years now, smiley face.
And then she kissed my face, yeah. I'm falling. I was all in.